All right. Joshua Perry, look at you with all your Buckeye memorabilia behind you, and it's great to see you. What have you been up to? I mean, a lot of your life revolves around sports. There's not a whole lot of that happening right now.
Yeah, it's been unique for me to kind of sit back and evaluate. I'm one of those people who's fortunate enough to really evaluate right now and not necessarily scramble. And it's, my nest egg from playing football is part of the reason for that. But I also am active in real estate. And so I've got some deals that are still continuing right now. And that's providing some support. So this has been a time for me to kind of hunker down and work on my skills, to really self-evaluate. And, I recently got engaged, so to do some wedding planning as well. But I know this has been a rough time. It's been rough for me as well, just as social as I am, not having that peace where I can connect with people. I'm used to being on the go, now having to sit back a lot, kind of find myself glued to the couch a little bit. But all in all, I think this is a time where a lot of us can grow from learning a new routine and really being in a self-evaluation mode.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations. I should have started with that and your engagement. That's amazing. I'm sure that your fiance is very happy that you have time to plan the wedding now. It's funny you say that you're glued to your couch, though. And, a lot of people would have said the same thing a couple months ago, and they would have been watching sports. What do you think it's like for people to kind of lose this cultural touchstone that we all have that sort of binds so many of us together?
Well, it's tough. And I think you kind of hit the first piece is sports is a way for us to be social, and we do it all the time. First thing you do after a big sporting event is you come into the office the next day and you sit around, and you drink coffee and you talk about what happened the night before. And that piece is just non-existent for two reasons. Number one, you can't go into the office. And number two, there's no sports to talk about. And so it's an adjustment there where people have kind of lost that ability to congregate and connect and kind of put differences aside. But I think number two, with the not having sports, is it's caused us to kind of really have to live in our realities, where before we could sit down, things might not be great, but your favorite team is playing, and it's a couple of hours out of your night or your afternoon to sit there, to enjoy some entertainment, to feel good about yourself, and then deal with what's going on later on. Right now, we're in a place where everything has to be dealt with right now, and there's not a lot of that release via sports. So I know that's tough for a lot of people. It's tough for me, just because I'm so used to being entrenched in sports culture. But like I said, for a lot of us, again, another time to evaluate whether that's good or bad. We have to take advantage of it.
How are you filling the space for yourself?
Yeah, it's tough. One thing I'm trying to do is build skill as much as possible in the media world. So that's going over my old tape. It's kind of, studying up right now, making sure that I can stay sharp on storylines that would potentially happen into the fall if we can get football rocking and rolling. And then it's investing myself into my other career and trying to build skill there, which is unique in and of itself. But the big piece has been family time as well. My parents live in town. My younger brother's here. So being able to connect and spend a lot more time, where my dad travels with work and now he's in town, that's been really refreshing for all of us.
What would you say to people who are, kind of floundering, who maybe haven't been able to find the self-motivation? And, one of the things I think makes you so amazing and successful is your ability to motivate. But a lot of people may not have that. What do you say to them who are maybe trying to figure out their place in this new normal that we're experiencing?
A couple of things. Number one, try new things, because we've never been here before and we don't know. So, you might feel like what you're doing isn't right, and you're not necessarily making a mistake. You're just trying out new things. And it's going to take a little while to build into a zone where you feel more comfortable with what's going on. And I think that's probably the second thing, is understanding that making personal changes is more of a marathon than a sprint. And that's something I struggle with, because I love the instant gratification. I love being able to see results immediately. That's not the case. And especially in a place where some of us have these orders where we can't go out, and we might be sheltering in place for another month. It might be a little bit longer than that. We can't tell. So having the marathon mentality of being able to tell yourself one day at a time. So, Monday is for this, and Tuesday is for that, and Wednesday is for that. It helps you pass the time without getting lost in yourself and without getting lost in the days where you can't be out and about doing your regular routine.
So, Big Ten, big part of your life, and I know you've been looking forward to the next Buckeye season as much as the rest of us. Any thoughts about that? There's some concern about the fall, and you guys had any talks over at Big Ten?
Yeah, and it's been interesting. I'll say, just from a national standpoint, one thing that I wish the conference commissioners and the commissioner of the NCAA would do, is tell all the head coaches to kind of stay quiet, to tell the athletic directors to stay quiet, and kind of have a unified voice. And you see it in other sectors where the travel industry has been pretty unified in this. You kind of see it, just out and about, where people who are having my industry, for example, in real estate, we have one voice that comes from a national level. Now, it might not be what all of us feel, and might not be the message all of us want to send, but at least we're unified. And right now, you have Dabo Swinney, who's traveling, but Ed Orgeron's doing PSAs, and you have some athletic directors talking about bottom lines, and other ones that are talking about the health and well-being of students and student athletes. So I think that's first. From the Big Ten perspective, we haven't had a ton of conversations. The one thing we're trying to do right now is prep for the football season. So they some materials for us to be able to prep. They send out storylines, the whole deal. We're doing business as usual in terms of preparing like there's going to be a football season that starts on time. We are not guaranteeing any of that's going to happen. We don't have a crystal ball, and we want what's best for students and student athletes, for coaches, administrators, etc. The other thing we're doing right now is we're trying to put out great content. And I'm going to be a part of that, where I'm going to do a draft preview of kind of the top draft prospects out of the Big Ten. We're going to put those out on social media. And it's been tough because all the networks are replaying old games right now. A lot of the analysts can't even get in studio to really talk about anything current, if there is current news, which a lot of it isn't being generated. So for us, being able to develop great content that can keep people connected, can keep us all linked in, that's salient to the moment, is a challenge, but something that we're willing to take on.
What do you think about this draft? We actually talked to Rick Spielman earlier this week, and he's getting ready for it. Got a lot of players who maybe didn't get to showcase themselves the way that they would have hoped. What's it going to mean to this group of future NFL athletes, or people who maybe don't get to be NFL athletes because of the challenges we faced?
It's such a weird experience for these folks, and pre-draft is hard for any athlete who's trying to take that next step into the NFL, because of how busy it is, all of the unknowns. There are a bunch of teams trying to get at you. You have a lot of demands, and now it's similar, and you're trying to get to the same place, but you don't have an opportunity to showcase. And I think of a few guys on Ohio State's roster. B.B. Landers is somebody we all know and love. Brandon Bowen's a guy who got injured, like snapped his leg in half, came back, finished out his career on a high note. And these guys weren't invited to the NFL Combine. They were banking on Ohio State's Pro Day in order to be able to showcase their skills, in a pro day that was probably going to have all 32 teams, if not close to that. So for those guys, it was a big missed opportunity to really show who they were. And I think we're going to see a number of underclassmen who left for the draft that are going to maybe have some regrets just because they weren't able to showcase. You're going to see some of these guys who are maybe under the radar that could have snuck into the end of the draft that are going to be undrafted free agents. And the difference in that might be, $50,000 worth of signing bonus money. That's a game changer for somebody who's 22 or 23 years old. And for the NFL teams too, I think we have to address the fact that this pre-draft process is as much for them trying to mitigate risk in who they're selecting. There's going to be a ton of risk now. You see it in free agency where, Cam Newton had some issues in terms of getting cut from the Carolina Panthers, and now he's a free agent. People are wondering about his health, but they can't get a physical on him. There are going to be a number of players who are like that. Some players are going to take a chance on it, might not pay off because they weren't able to do the full medical exam. For other people, it's going to hurt the player because maybe they didn't see as much on tape, and now they're not going to take the risk they might have taken if the health exam would have come out fine. So there are a ton of different aspects of this. It's a really strange situation for not only the players, but the NFL organizations as well. They'll see it through, but I think this draft class will go down with the star next to it for all of history.
I think a lot of things are going to. So last thing, how are you staying active and fit? Have you got any suggestions for people who are feeling like maybe taking a walk is getting to be a little tedious for them?
That's been kind of the thing that I've enjoyed, is being able to take a walk and getting the fresh air. I think fresh air is healing, and it sounds so corny to say that, but you start to realize that once you're cooped up inside your home all day long, and you take a step outside and it just feels different. And now that it's sunny, it hits you a little bit differently. But I have a Peloton bike, and that's a really good resource. I actually just finished up a workout before I got on here, and I was sweating buckets. So that's been good. I've gotten some resistance bands so I could do some training that way, because my setup's not good for some weights, and weights are really expensive, quite frankly. And so again, that's a part of changing the routine, because before I wasn't huge on cardio, but I have to do that with the Peloton bike to make up for what I can't get going to a regular gym. And then the resistance bands, space thing, but also I don't want to kill my joints because I have to work out a little bit more often now. But all in all, those are two ways I've stayed active. And then mentally, always trying to challenge myself. I see my fiance every day reading books, and she's finishing up at Ohio State, so doing her schoolwork. It's really awesome, and it's kind of motivated me to come into my office and take some time to do some research and read and everything else. So physical, mental, want to make sure that I come out of this thing with maybe a little bit more skill and a little bit more intensity than I went into it with.
I love hearing that. Joshua Perry, it is so great to talk with you, and we just hope to see you soon on the Big Ten Network, and please stay well.
So always a pleasure.